Hey, friends, by now you may have heard that President Trump has discussed sending stimulus checks to Americans. And I know this is big news every time it comes up. So I wanted to hop on here and talk to you about what he said, what it might mean for you, and what you can expect going forward. So, what we know so far is that during an interview on October 2nd, with One America News, President Trump mentioned the idea of giving Americans checks between $1,000 and $2,000, which would apparently be funded by revenue from the tariffs. He said that it could be a dividend to the people, which would be, a share of the money collected from those import taxes. But a lot of this is getting overhyped and misrepresented. And you know, I love to bring you the facts here on this channel. So we're going to break down exactly what he said, the status of various stimulus proposals, and so on here today. So I hope you'll stick with me. So, first up, let's look at his exact words, okay? The quotes that I have seen floating around are these. We are going to do something. We're looking at something. Number one, we're paying down debt because people have allowed the debt to go crazy. I think we can all agree that the national debt is a bit out of control. So, it's good that they're going to be focusing there. But then the next thing he said was, we also might make a distribution to the people, almost like a dividend to the people of America. We're thinking maybe $1,000 to $2,000. It would be great. I have seen these two quotes in multiple news reports on this subject, and a couple of things jump out at me right off the bat. First of all, these are two separate quotes. When he says we're going to do something, that was not necessarily directly tied to this idea of these checks. The second thing I notice is there's a lot of theoretical, non committal language being used here. We might make a distribution to the people. We're thinking maybe. This is very light language. This is not a promise or a guarantee of any kind. So, when it comes to the details of who would qualify, when these checks would arrive, and so on, nobody really knows yet. The interview didn't say if everyone would get the money or if it would be limited by income, age, or taxpayer status. We do know that earlier this year there was talk of what they called a Doge rebate, which was going to be sent in a couple of years. We have another video that breaks all of this down. But the loophole that a lot of people missed when discussing that is that it was only intended for active taxpayers or people who were currently paying taxes. Those who don't owe taxes because they're low income or who receive so many refundable tax credits that it zeroes out their tax liability would have been excluded from those Doge rebate checks. So that was the most recent discussion we've seen of any sort of stimulus payment. So it's reasonable to think that there may be limitations on whatever would be rolled out in the future as well. But another big unknown is when or even if this would ever happen, because no law has been passed and no timeline has been set. It is all very theoretical right now. So please do be aware of that and don't go out and spend money that isn't yours yet. Like I said, the language was very non-committal. This was a comment in an interview, not a law, not an executive order, not any sort of official action. No one in Congress has voted on it. In fact, the government is currently in a shutdown because they can't agree how to appropriate the money on the things they're already supposed to pay for. So we do know from prior experience that the president can't send checks without Congress approving that money first. And Congress is already mired in a gridlock. So even if these tariff stimulus checks were to be a thing at some point in the future, I don't see it being a thing that would happen anytime soon. So when you see these articles and these videos talking about this tariff stimulus check, please remember that as of right now, it is only a suggestion. It is not anything official at this time. Now, there are other people working on some sort of stimulus payment thing. We know that there's been a proposal put before Congress called the American Worker Rebate Act, which would basically use tariff revenue to provide some sort of tax rebate, which would be starting around $600 per adult and per child. But that has not advanced. It hasn't moved at all in Congress. We do know that Representative Ro Khanna from California has suggested sending $2,000 stimulus checks to Americans earning under $100,000. But again, that was just a tweet. That wasn't anything official either. And again, of course, that $5,000 Doge dividend proposal has not been advanced, but I haven't seen it conclusively discarded either. It's just a thing that was said, and who knows if that will ever be followed up on. None of these have been approved by Congress. None of these have really had any sort of meaningful action taken on them. And I think it's important to point out that a lot of times politicians just say things, right? And you can't take what one person says as a promise or a guarantee because there's a lot of checks and balances and moving parts in our government that require a lot of these proposals to go through a lot of hoops. So ultimately, the takeaway here is yes, he did mention that it was a possibility, but no, there is nothing concrete at this time. We don't know who or when or even really what. But it is interesting to see the idea of stimulus checks popping up again. And I knew you guys were going to be excited about this. So I wanted to get the facts to you as quickly as possible because I know we're going to get tons of comments and questions about that. Now, of course, if you need money in the short term, our sponsor Free Cash has some great opportunities to earn money by playing games, testing new apps, taking surveys, and more. So go check that out. And I will be back soon with more ways that you can save money and get free stuff. I'll see you there.